Speak on the show 2021, episode 21, Father's Day analysis, Juneteenth displeasure, guilty of murder, critical race theory, and the mind, body, and soul segment. Y'all ready? It's Saturday morning, y'all. Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On It. I am your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to the God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. We're back, y'all. We're back. You know, took a little hiatus last week, but we're back. We're back. Good morning, Maurice Wigfall. Appreciate the support, my brother. Raymond Hunter. Appreciate the support, my brother. Appreciate the support. Y'all talking cross again. All right. Right back at you. All right. All right. Good morning, Lady Michelle. Good morning, Lady Michelle. Let's get these formalities out the way. We ready to get into this thing this morning. rwcoolins.com. That's the website. Go there. RW Coolins over all social media platforms. You can go there, get all the information about the show, what's going on with the show. Click the links, follow the links, share, subscribe, do all the things you do for the other pages, as well as you do for the RW Coolins and the Speak On the Show. So do the same thing for us, me, that you do for everybody else. All right, just do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. We're also broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube this morning, as we always do on this Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Call in number 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. We ask when you come in there, if you got a comment, say what you mean what you say. We come in as friends, we leave as friends, we agree to disagree, but we don't leave with anger. We don't leave with discourse. We don't leave different than we came in. We all brothers and sisters here. Let's do this. Let's do this. So I had a good week, y'all. I had a good week. I ain't gonna lie. I had a good week. It was a relaxing week last weekend. I chilled out and everything, but we're gonna get into some things about I had to laugh at myself because I told y'all I was going to do an analysis. And I didn't go into detail what my analysis was about, but it was something that was, you know, I had to see it for myself to find these things out because it's been going on for a while. I've addressed it before. I've still seen it in pockets. But let me get into this. Father's Day analysis. Father's Day analysis. Now, most of you people out there thinking I'm gonna get into the why fathers get socks and drawers and colognes and Father's Day is not celebrated like Mother's Day and all. No, not gonna get into that. We're not gonna do them comparisons with that. That's what I'm not gonna do. What I am gonna tell you is accept Father's Day for what it is, receive it, embrace it. If you're a father, if you're celebrating Father's Day, treat them good on Father's Day. You know, do what you do. You know, it'll never, ever probably get up to the point of Mother's Day, Christmas. Those are the top two holidays of the year. But Father's Day, appreciate them, love on them, do what you do. Good morning, Rod. Terrence Collins, appreciate your support, my brother. Appreciate the support. Oh, I was caught up in the reading. I'm sorry, y'all. Anyway, let's move on to this. So Father's Day analysis. Let me tell you what I did. So I've addressed this before, but I wanted to. I'm not saying had to. I wanted to do a new analysis, new evaluation of this. And anybody's been listening to the show for a long period of time, because we're coming up on 9 years. Let's just be real. Coming up on 9 years. I've talked about this many times, and it bothered me at the time. But what it was, I did an analysis. I went through all social media over the last weekend. And what I was specifically looking for was those folks who were saying Happy Father's Day to single mothers, single mothers in the world. They get shout out to all the single mothers who's holding it down. You fulfilling both roles, and you know what I'm talking about. And I don't want to sound derogatory when I say that, but that's what my analysis was about that I did for Father's Day. And I'm glad to report, I'm so glad to report that as the years have gone by, this year, when I did this analysis, and I think this is last year I'm gonna have to do this unless I see it spike back up, I only seen one post giving a shout out to women who may be fulfilling both roles as fathers on Father's Day. Now, everybody, some people will agree, some people won't agree, but my opinion of this is you're a mother or a father. You can't fulfill a father role. You may have someone who fulfills a father figure who is a male. A mother and a father, that's two different genders. You just leave it like it is. But when you see these things on Father's Day, people posting this, as a father, it causes a little bit of discord in my system. And I'm sure other people see it and they get a little upset. Some people may not voice their opinion as much as me about it. However, I only found one post. So whatever we're doing out there, as far as coming around, realizing, recognizing, educating ourselves on what the meaning of these things are, and not taking for granted fathers on Father's Day and accepting them for who they are. And even though women, don't get me wrong, you may be fulfilling both roles as a single parent or whatever you do, whatever's going on, whether the person's, here on the earth or passed away or whatever, I'm fine with that. But to recognize it on Father's Day and call, say happy Father's Day to a woman on Father's Day, I just didn't get it. It didn't sit well with me. So with that being said, only one. So I'm gonna get off that. That was my analysis I wanted to do. Good morning, Michelle Long. Appreciate your support. Big Tone, appreciate your support, bro. So that was my analysis I wanted to do. I just want to put that out there because it has changed over time. And I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all for listening to me rant on about that. But it was just something that just didn't sit well with a brother. You know what I'm saying? We all got something, our little idiosyncrasies. But let's transition to this right here. Juneteenth displeasure. Juneteenth displeasure. Now, Juneteenth has now become a national holiday. Everybody that knows the history of Juneteenth is when the slaves in Texas found out 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed that they're free. So now it's a national holiday where we can celebrate Juneteenth just as much as we celebrate. And let me clear this up. It's not the same as July 4th, but they look at it as slaves were freed that day. So it's Black Independence Day, however you want to look at it, African Americans. Read up on it, get your history about it. I've gone through the history many times because I've celebrated it a long time, recognized it, that kind of thing. But for you, get your education and everything like that. Big Tone, man, we men only get one holiday a year. Let us have it. Exactly. That's all I was going on. But I think we good now, bro. I think we good. After I did my analysis, only seen one. I think we good. So hold on to that. Hold on to it. Embrace it. Embrace it. But back to Juneteenth. So with Juneteenth, I've seen a lot of people upset that this is now a national holiday. There's a lot of people who are displeased that we are recognizing Juneteenth as a national holiday. I've seen posts from people who said there's only one true Independence Day, but if people think about it, and I would recommend you go back and read Frederick Douglass's speech that he gave, what is the 4th of July to the Negro, so you get a better understanding of what was going on then and how it affected us then, and how the 4th of July was not a holiday for specific slaves because they did not have freedom. But I digress. Let me continue. So the displeasure I see, the people who are upset and everything, and mainly those talking heads on the political side, on the political aisle, saying that how many more holidays do we need? You already got one holiday. Somebody made a comment, you got one holiday. How many more do you need? And then somebody said, why are we celebrating Slave Day? I didn't say it, but I heard it. Somebody said, why are we celebrating Slave Day? So I say that all because when you think about Juneteenth and the history of Juneteenth, it really makes you think about how history can be minimized or can be overlooked. Things in history can be overlooked depending on who wants to write the history. Juneteenth should be celebrated. It should be recognized. And the thing about it, we talk about the Emancipation Proclamation all the time because everyone talks about the Emancipation Proclamation because it said President Lincoln signed it. And that was the date. That is what the document was that freed slaves. But the people in Texas did not hear that they were free. And there was a lot of other pockets, but Texas is where this was mainly celebrated. So with that being said, come on, let's be honest about this. Why? And I've said this many times before, but I'm gonna say it again. And we're gonna get into this critical race theory a little later. But why do we pick and choose what pockets we want to fill in with information that people truly need? Because as we'll get into, the thing about it, if you were only identified as 3/5 of a man for voting as an African-American Black on this soil at the time, and then Juneteenth, is when you were actually given the right to be able to do these things and get certain rights. What's the problem with celebrating? I think those who have a problem with it, it's not the fact that we're celebrating it. It's not celebrating it. Excuse me. It's not the fact that, it's a holiday now. It's not the fact that it's been identified. It's the fact that they want something to talk about, because when they talk about these things and what's going on, they want to call the people that are in the mix of making these things happen that they're too woke. Their wokeness is the reason that we have and are having these holidays. But you can't disenfranchise a people and not recognize that what their contributions were or are to the process. You can't disenfranchise a people and continue to put your foot on their neck and say that, well, we gave you this, so be quiet about that or any of that. It just didn't sit well with me, the Juneteenth Displeasure, because when I read it, it was very ignorant on what people's comments were. And for me, I look at it and I say, I've been celebrating Juneteenth or recognizing Juneteenth for a long period of time. I've told people about Juneteenth who have never heard about it. A lot of people that look like me have never heard about Juneteenth until just recently. This is where we do ourselves a disservice by not going out and educating ourselves and expecting the school systems and other folks to educate us. When you hear about something and you're not sure about something, research it, learn you something. Don't teach me something. Learn me something. Learn yourself something. Learn what's going on. That's all I'm saying. So people out here that are upset about the Juneteenth holiday, calling it another slave day. How many more holidays do y'all need? All that kind of stuff. That's where the disconnect comes in for a lot of us. Faye Jackson, good morning, bro. Appreciate your support. RJ in house. Yeah, we know you in the house, bro. Appreciate you though. Brian Hoodie, good morning, sir. Appreciate your support. Appreciate your support. So let's get into this. Guilty of murder. Guilty of murder. Now, I'm sure everybody's seen in the headlines yesterday, it was late yesterday, that Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd, has been sentenced to 22 and a half years in prison. 22 and a half years. He could have got up to 40 years because let me read the charges first. Let me get into this. Oh, first of all, 22 and a half years comes out to 270 months. Add it up, do your math if you ain't got nothing else to do. But he was found guilty of murder of George Floyd. He was charged with second-degree unintentional murder, and I want to talk about that one, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. Overall, 22 and a half years, 270 months, he'll serve time. He probably would never be in general population. They'll find somewhere to put him where it's kind of a, what do they call it, like a country club type prison, jail, or whatever they're going to put him, because they're worried about his protection. But they got other people. I'm not going to get into that right now. But let's talk about this unintentional murder. I have mixed feelings about unintentional murder, because my thing is, if you had your knee on this individual's neck for 9 minutes, 46 seconds, or 9:29, first was 8:40, you know what I'm saying, the time period. Just to break it down. If you had your foot on the neck of an individual for a long period of time, which caused them to die, and you're charged with murder. If this person that you had your neck on is saying that they can't breathe, they can't move, they're screaming, and they're yelling for the mama and all the different things, he's saying you're gonna kill me and all this, and I'm rehashing everything we all know. But this second degree unintentional murder bothers me. And it bothers me because unintentional means that he didn't mean to do it. But what we all seen on the video was that he had intentions to harm him. Murder was the end result. So truly, it should have been second degree unintentional murder, because what his intentions were, we all seen. We all seen with our own eyes what his intentions were with George Floyd while he was on that ground. So for them to have it as second degree unintentional murder doesn't sit well with me. That's just my opinion. From what I look at it, I just, when you stand there and you do something to somebody for that long period of time, your intentions are there. Your intentions are there. The end result of what you were doing is what? To kill someone. If you continue to do what you know can result in that. That's not an unintentional, that's intentional. From where I come from anyway. You draw your own conclusions from it or whatever. But this is going to set the stage on why we haven't been able to get the George Floyd Policing Act of 2021 passed. This is going to be a hindrance right here, because you have to think about it this way. We just had a police officer sentenced to 22 and a half years for murder. First one, probably ever. Because if you go all the way back through time, you haven't had too many police officers, sentenced to a murder charge for killing a suspect, or however you want to put it. But it's 22 and a half years, which could have been up to 40 years for the one charge. 22 and a half years. This, what they call qualified immunity, which is the sticking point on why this George Floyd Policing Act has not passed up to this point, is going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem, and you probably will hear the back and forth about the George Floyd and Policing Act, and eventually my prediction will be the qualified immunity will be taken out and the verbiage will be different. It won't be blanket, if that makes sense. It won't be blanket, because if you do a blanket and eliminate the qualified immunity for all police officers and what they're doing in the streets, if they're found guilty of something and they do time, 22 and a half years and all this kind of stuff, you're going to see a decrease in the mindset, a decrease in people wanting to be police officers. And they say a decrease in what they're going to do as police officers. I don't believe that. A police officer is going to do what he's got to do by the integrity. Let's just be honest about it. But with the qualified immunity, with this case being what it was, which is what it should have been, 22 and a half years, if not more, is consistent with why they always fight to keep qualified immunity in the books. Pay attention, people. Listen to who's talking about what with this qualified immunity and the George Floyd Policing Act. Pay attention, because there's certain things they're going to put in, certain things they're going to put out, certain things they're going to water down, and it will all be based on, which is what they were afraid of, this 22 and a half year sentence that Derek Chauvin just got for the murder of George Floyd. Now, also on the George Floyd, conversation, there's been two statues erected in honor of George Floyd. One in New Jersey and one in New York. One in New York, I think it was the one in New York, they said was vandalized. I've seen some articles, Jason Whitlock to be specific. If everybody don't know who Jason Whitlock is, look him up. I'm not going to get into it. I don't like talking about him. But anyway, he brought up the fact and saying they should all be taken down. George Floyd, those two George Floyd statues are racist. He's not Martin Luther King. He's not, any African-American, Black, prominent person that we have statues about. They're saying that George Floyd is not him. George Floyd is a criminal. George Floyd is a victim of his own drug abuse, drug addiction, and so on. We've heard the story all the time. But now that they have erected these two statues, there's a lot of people that are upset. I would tell you my personal opinion. I'm a little torn between the two. I understand the concept of identifying that this murder of him could be the one that jump starts the true part of us having honest conversations about police brutality and what's going on through the years when they weren't held accountable. But on the other side, my question comes in, should we be erecting a statue for a person who was killed senselessly over a counterfeit $20 bill and recognizing this person as, I don't know, when we erect statues, I mean, it's like a symbolism type thing. So it's kind of weighted too. But at the same time, I go back to this. If you have a problem with George Floyd having a statue erected for him because this may change the way justice is served and justice is done, why don't you have a problem with all the former senators, congressmen, presidents who owned slaves, because the atrocities that happened during slavery are much worse than the drug addiction or the crimes that George Floyd may have committed during his life? I don't like doing comparisons, but when you look at the big picture, you can't be pissed off and mad because this, someone in the George Floyd Foundation, I'm going to call it, decided that they were going to put up 2 statues in remembrance of him and what he stood for and what sparked this protest over the last summer. If you're not mad about the statues of people who had slaves for all those years, people who had slaves and didn't tell them that they were free, you see where I'm going here, right? You have to look at it in the big scope of things of, you can have your opinion about one, but if you're going to look at one, you need to look at all. Because what we tend to do and what people tend to do is point the finger here at one thing, but not understand the basis of what the other thing is. And and not in the comparison aspect, but in the visual aspect. You can't continue because you recognize something. It's just like I was just talking about with Juneteenth. You can't be mad about a holiday to celebrate the freedom of slaves in this country, where this country was supposed to be built on freedom for all, and have a problem with them recognizing now that the slaves who were free, that didn't know they were free, now we're going to celebrate the holiday when they actually knew they were free. But in the same breath, celebrate July 4th, Independence Day, when it wasn't an Independence Day for everyone in this country, especially slaves. Those are the things that we see. Those are the things going around that people talk about. These are the things that we see other people post and all that kind of stuff. And it goes into the point of critical thinking, which is where we're going to transition to in a minute. But critical thinking, look at it from both sides. Don't just get pigeonholed into your opinion. Look at it from the full aspect of what the conversation is about. We get so caught up in what our opinion is and what our views are that we never look at the views of those who may have a different opinion, to kind of process it and get an understanding of where they may stand, where they may sit, why they stand on what they believe, and put it in the aspect of what you believe and come to some kind of happy medium where you understand that my way is not always the right way. So when you talk about Juneteenth, you talk about George Floyd police enactment, you talk about voting rights, which they're still going back and forth about. When you talk about all these different things, the 1619 Project, as I mentioned, and all the different things we've talked about on this show, as I've mentioned many, many times before, being pro-Black does not make me anti-white or anti-anything. Being pro-Black means that I'm going to support my people when they're right. Let's go here. When they're right. If you're wrong, but I'm going to support my people in what we do and what we're trying to accomplish, because it's going to affect me as well as my children, my children's children, so on and so forth. So these history lessons we learn and these things that we're trying to figure out, these holes that we're trying to fill these gaps in about what part we played in the history of the United States of America, rather than being so hell-bent to talk about it and against it, do your research and find out for yourself what it's all about. Find out for yourself what's really going on. Because if you're always going by other people's talking points, you'll never get the true essence of what it's all about. Now, you may come up with the same conclusion at the end and say, I ain't paying attention to that. That's fine. But at least you did your due diligence. That's where we have our disconnects. People don't want to do their due diligence and find out the information for themselves. That's the problem. Case in point, critical race theory. Let's get into this. So critical race theory, I know we've talked about this a little bit, and I've only skimmed the surface because I needed to do more research myself, as I mentioned before. And I'm going to start off before we get into this critical race theory, and I'm going to bring it up to this point. This quote that I found that goes along with the critical race theory that we're going to talk about today. Because there's all these different opinions and different things like that about what it's about. And most of these people that are talking about it haven't even done the research to find out what it's about. They're just hell bent on the fact that it shouldn't be talked about. It shouldn't be taught in schools and those type things. But let me just give you this quote, and then we're going to get into critical race theory. The quote is, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." So when you talk about critical race theory, look, what I did first, I broke this down by the 3 words that are included there. Critical race theory. And I'm going to give you the definition of all 3, and then I'm going to tell you what critical race theory is all about. The word critical, exercising or involving careful judgment or judicious evaluation. Race, any one of the groups that humans are often divided into based on physical traits regarded as common among people of shared ancestry. Theory, a hypothesis assumed for the sake of argument or investigation. You feel me? Let me say that last one again, because we all know what critical is. Critical is being critical of something, looking at something, a careful judgment, judicious evaluation. Race, we all know what race is. It's a group, any of the groups that humans are often divided into, how they do the race separation and all that kind of stuff. But theory, I think, is the main thing that needs to be pointed out on this. Theory, a hypothesis assumed for the sake of argument or investigation. So the theory is not saying it's true and factual. It's a theory of what has happened and what's going on and how it's still affecting things. You see how I broke that down so eloquently? But I wanted to get y'all to understand that those 3 words individually come up to the point of what a critical race theory is all about. Now, critical race theory. This is the definition of what critical race theory was, what it's about, what it was founded on, everything like that. It's an intellectual movement and loosely organized framework of legal analysis based on the premise that race is not a natural, biological, grounded feature of physically distinct subgroups of human beings, but a socially constructed category that is used to oppress and exploit people of color. Critical race theories hold that the law and legal institutions in the United States are inherently racist insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequalities between whites and non-whites, especially African Americans. Now, mind you, everything that I've read there is what critical race theory is about. But remember, the key word in there is theory. Theory. And the theory is evolved from everything that has happened through history, that they've took these things and they've came up with their theory. When you go to college and you have to write a thesis, this is a theory. Same mentality, same mindset, same damn thing. But they're in an uproar about critical race theory. They're making it seem like it's like you looking in the mirror and say Candyman 3 times and it's just gonna change every damn thing. It's a theory, people. Critical race theory was officially organized in 1989 at the first annual workshop on critical race theory, though its intellectual origins go back much further to the 1960s and the 1970s. Its immediate precursor was the Critical Legal Studies, CLS, movement, which dedicated itself to examining how the law and legal institutions serve the interests of the wealthy and powerful at the expense of the poor and marginalized. Come on. We know how it works with the poor rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's what this was. I'm not going to read all this and go in depth on this, but there's a couple things I want to touch on real quick. In their work, Critical Race Theory, an Introduction, first published in 2001, the legal scholars, and that's the other part, these are legal scholars who came up with the critical race theory. It ain't just the people walking down the street. This is legal scholars who look at the laws, who look at what happens with the law over time. And this is what they came up with. The legal scholars, Richard Delgado, one of the founders of critical race theory, and Gene Stefancic, discussed several general propositions that they claim would be accepted by many critical race theorists despite the considerable variation of belief among members of the movement. Now, with this critical race theory, and this is what I'm going to touch on, there's 6 basic tenets of critical race theory, according to authors, including the following. These 6 things are the following things that are the tenets of critical race theory. Number 1, race is socially constructed, not biologically natural. Number 2, racism in the United States is normal, not aberrational. It is the common, ordinary experience of most people of color. Number 3, owing to what critical race theorists call interest convergence or material determinism, legal advances for people of color tend to serve the interests of dominant white groups. Thus, the racial hierarchy that characterizes American society may be unaffected or even reinforced by ostensible improvements in the legal status of oppressed or exploited people. Number 4, members of minority groups periodically undergo differential racialization or the attribution to them of varying sets of negative stereotypes, again, depending on the needs or interests of whites. Number 5, according to the thesis of intersectionality or anti-essentialism, no individual can be adequately identified by membership in a single group. An African-American person, for example, may also identify as a woman, a lesbian, a feminist, a Christian, and so on. Finally, number 6. Now, this is the one that jumped out at me. And I want y'all to listen to this real good. The voice of color thesis holds that people of color are uniquely qualified to speak on behalf of other members of their group or groups regarding the forms and effects of racism. This consensus has led to the growth of the legal storytelling movement, which argues that the self-expressed views of victims of racism and other forms of oppression provide essential insight into the nature of the legal system. Now, what I break down from that about the voice of color, let me just be honest about this part. The voice of color breaks down and says what we've talked about many times on here. Me and OT had a discussion about this when we did our unscripted not too long ago. When we talk about leaders, they lump everyone under the umbrella of what one person of color says, and they want to put him as the leader because this is what he feels. And because that's what he feels, they put everyone in that same category that we all feel the same way. Stop. Please stop. Because this is part of this critical race theory, but that we are lumped into this thing like a big ball where we don't have individual thoughts on our own. Case in point, you see now, and I'm going to digress for a minute. Case in point, you have Republicans that are black, Democrats that are black. But the thing about it is, if they're Republican, a lot of people have a distaste for Republicans that look like us. You know, the word sellout, Uncle Tom's, all the things you hear, because they think that whoever is speaking from the Republican side, or Candace Owens, or Jason Whitlock, and I can go down the list, when they speak against things that are going on in the black community, that everyone should feel the same way. And they feel that they're an expert, not because they know the information, but because of how they look. And they're listening to them because they're on the same side of the aisle as them. Now let's take it to the other side. You have people that are Democrat who continue to speak their opinions and things like that, and they lump everyone into this same category that we think and feel the same way as this one person. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we all individually have our opinions and our thoughts, and we know what's right and wrong as individuals. But what the critical race theory went to identify is that we all as individuals make up this group and make up a race of people. But it doesn't mean that we all have the same opinions and the same thoughts. You don't lump all white folks into one category when it comes to an opinion or a problem or anything like that. But with critical race theory, people are so scared that it's going to do something to change the dichotomy of the mentality of the people walking the face of this earth, that they're scared to talk about it. They're worried about it getting in schools. They're worried about the kids being educated on it. What are you scared of? What is the worry about? Everything I've read to you today is the basis of what critical race theory is about. The basis. So if this is the basis, what is the fear? What causes the fear? Because what I've just read to you that I could find anywhere, I got it out of Britannica encyclopedia website, which is the best place to go if you want facts. But most people sitting up on the hill that are trying to pass these laws and are the ones that are going to be making these decisions about, whether this is done and that's done and how we're going to get this and the Voting Rights Act and all these things, they're so hell-bent talking heads about being against critical race theory. But if you ever watch some of these interviews that they're on, they can't even tell you what critical race theory is. So it's not the fact that they understand it and they're against it. They know nothing about it, but because of what it's teaching and what it states, they're against it. When did we get to a point in this United States of America as a people, as a whole, eliminate any color out of it? When did we get to the point in the world where we draw our conclusions about how we feel about something without even knowing the facts about what it is? We let other folks influence our mindset by what they want you to believe about something, what they want you to know about a subject, and we're guilty because we don't go back and do the research ourselves. And then when you hear these politicians and these talking heads from both sides of the aisle or whatever, and they're against this, or we should do this, or we shouldn't be talking about this 1619 project, and we shouldn't even talk about it. Critical race theory, don't put it in the schools. Well, it's not in the schools. The people that are talking about critical race theory are the people that don't want to talk about critical race theory. Think about that. You haven't heard anything about critical race theory until President Trump brought it up in a speech when he talked about the 1619 project and critical race theory, talking about how we're trying to rewrite history and everything like that. And people have taken it and ran with it. And to this day, I have not seen one politician who talks about critical race theory break it down to the understanding of what it's all about. You know why that is? Because there's no problem with critical race theory. Critical race theory is simply a theory on how race is viewed, how it has affected laws that have been written. It's a theory on this is why these things are this way. No one ever said truth. It didn't say critical race truth. It says critical race theory. We all have a theory about something. But this is where we, and when I say we, I'm talking about we as the voting people. This is where we need to get more involved in what's going on around us and push back when we know things are being told that are untrue. But we get comfortable, we get complacent. And the reason we do that, because if it's not directly affecting me, then I don't worry about it. I don't care about it. I don't need to read up on that. It ain't got nothing to do with me. But you turn the TV on and listen to somebody else tell you and ingest in you the information you think is best for you. But it's not. I'm not telling you not to watch TV. I'm not telling you not to watch opinion pieces. Hell, you watch me on Saturday mornings. I'm not telling you not to watch me. But I'm also not telling you to believe everything I tell you. Go find out for yourself. I'm going to give you information to the best of my knowledge and my research, because that's what I'm supposed to do. My opinions are my opinions only. I'm not trying to force them on you. Some of you will agree, some of you won't. Some of y'all like, he full of shit. I don't care. And it's not that I don't care that you care. I don't care that you don't matter about my opinion, because you take the time to go find out for yourself. You can't sit back and continually be against something that you don't know nothing about. That's just like somebody saying, I don't like Brussels sprouts. Have you ever tried them? I mean, that's the simplest way you can put it. I don't like asparagus. Have you ever eaten it? Oh, I don't like the state of Wyoming. Have you ever been there? It's that simple. But we allow, and I'm going to say we allow people to infiltrate our minds with information that they feel we need, and we take it as face value because of who said it, not what they said. This week, case in point, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley. They were at the Armed Services Committee up at the Capitol, and they were talking about different things, and then talking about the military and what's going on. Matt Gaetz, everybody know who Matt Gaetz under investigation, looked like Matt Gaetz. Let me just put it that way, and Michael Waltz. These are the two that asked these questions specific. And I had the video, but I can't play because it keeps my internet's going in and out. But yeah, I'll post it on my page and you can go back and look at it. But in this discussion and the questions they were asked, they made it a point. Matt Gaetz and Mr. Schultz made it a point. Mr. Waltz made it a point to ask Secretary Austin. Excuse me, I'm George Floyd State. Secretary Lloyd Austin about his extremism stand down. You heard me talk about it before, where the military, civil service, everybody had a stand down so they could examine and discuss extremism in the military. What's going on? White supremacy, white nationalists, all these different things that were going on in the military. And Matt Gaetz eloquently told Secretary of Defense Austin, retired general, that by him having this stand down, it was relayed to him as a congressman that the stand down caused more harm than help. Listen to what I just said now, that the stand down caused more harm than help. And the people he was hearing this from was most of the largely minority organizations within the DOD. His words, not mine. Secretary Austin fired back and said, I don't know where you're getting that information from. He said, but whoever you've talked to, I've talked to tens of thousands and many of thousands more people with you, and I have not gotten that feedback. This is them going back and forth. Then Matt Gaetz asked about, I can't remember his name. It'll be on the thing when I post it, but Secretary of Defense Austin hired a guy, I can't think, Bishop something. I can't remember his last name. African-American male, black male. And he's the person in charge of diversity and everything like that. And Matt Gaetz said that he had tweets that showed that he was a critical race theorist. And he asked Secretary of Defense Austin, why you would hire a critical race theorist to be your lead on this. And then Secretary of Defense Austin came back and said, wait a minute. This is the first time I've ever heard him called a critical race theorist. Where are you getting this information? Then Matt Gaetz came back and he said to him, well, I've looked at his tweets, and he read a tweet from this time. I do my research. I went back and went through his tweets. I didn't see anything, not one time, where he mentioned anything about critical race theory, but he called him a critical race theorist. Nothing whatsoever. And then he asked, he asked Secretary of Defense Austin, did he personally review his tweets? And Secretary of Defense Austin said, I got people to do that, and I trust my people's judgment. And Matt Gaetz came back and said, well, maybe they'll tell you what you want to hear. Secretary of Defense Austin came back and told him, well, maybe the people that you're talking to are telling you what you want to hear. I'm synopsizing it. That's not a word, but I'm making one up right now. But that's what the breakdown came to. But it's critical race theory jumped into a meeting about the Armed Services Committee. Why? You do the math. Extremism stand down that an African-American, first African-American Secretary of Defense decided he was going to do some what's going on with the troops. So to make that look like it was a fault of his to do that, you bring up critical race theory to counterbalance it from the Matt Gaetz opinion. You see where he went, right? But then General Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, brought it up, and he said to him, he had some opinions. Now, I'm going to synopsize this, give you a synopsis of this, but basically all he said was this, and this is the part that jumped out at me. General Milley said he's read Lenin, Stalin, he's read about Marxism, he's read about all these different things that we think are bad around the world. And he asked the question, I want to know about critical race theory. I want to understand it. He also said that he wants to know, watch this, what white rage is because of what happened on January 6th. He's curious to know what is causing this white rage because he's a white man. He wants to know. Matt Gaetz sat there looking puzzled. See, these are the type of things that you're pushing back on someone who is defending this country as military members who have all these military members under them, no matter what nationality, and you're accusing them of allowing critical race theory to be taught in the university, which, you know, the military academies are universities, and they're being accused of letting this stuff be taught, and then accused the general and the Secretary of Defense of their people being too woke. They're allowing wokeness in the military. And like General Milley said, the people we serve this military with, the people we oversee in this military come from all walks of life of this United States of America. It's all inclusive. They have to be all inclusive. And he wants to know what white rage and what caused that on January 6th. I tell y'all, pay attention to these things, because these are the people that and when I say we, I mean as a whole, because I'm not in Florida, but these are the people that we're voting in the office. These are the ones that we're putting up there to pass laws, legislation. And they're more concerned about a theory rather than doing the work, because the theory does not fit the narrative of what they want it to fit. I'll post those videos once the show is over, but I think you need to look at it. You need to really pay attention to the questions that were asked, and you also need to truly pay attention to what General Milley had to say in response to what Matt Gaetz was asking with critical race theory. Just my opinion. I think everybody needs to be educated on these things because, you know, like I said before, we hear things, we see things, but we need to research things. Learn me something. As I always like to say, learn me something. Let's go and get in this mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. 2021, year 2021, about self-care, self-help, taking care of yourself, taking it one day at a time. The quote today deals with a lot of different things. The whole mind, body, and soul as a whole. And this is the best way to put it. And it goes into what you're ingesting, not only internally through your mouth, but through your brain, through your ears, and what you choose to process and what you choose to hold on to. And here we go. Mind, body, and soul. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. This week, and over the last couple of weeks, I've had some conversations with some people, and I've heard different, secondhand conversations about some folks that are having health problems. And they're at the point now where they're not going to the gym because they want to get healthy. They're going to the gym because they have to get healthy. Let me say that again. They're not going to the gym. They're not changing habits that they've had that have gotten them unhealthy. They're not going to the gym because they want to change those habits. They're going to the gym because they have to change those habits. You get to a certain point. I mean, I talked about it talked about it during the pandemic. Did I put on some pandemic pounds? I call it pandemic pounds. Y'all call it what you want. But I was guilty of it. I think we all are guilty of it at times. We get in those little lapses where we may put on about 5, 10, 15. You go past 15, you might be pushing it, but 10, 15, maybe 20. But a lot of us, because we are in tune with who we are, we get that alert that says, hey, it's about that time. It's about that time. You need to get up and do something. It's about that time. So when you get to that point, you have to ask yourself, how did I get here? What am I overlooking, and why does it take for me to go to a doctor appointment, an annual physical, which some people don't go to, and you need to start going every year and get a physical? I don't care who you are, I don't care how old you are, go get a physical. But you have to ask yourself, how did I get to the point where just because I haven't been doing things and I haven't had a physical in a year, I'll come back in a year, and now you're telling me I got to do all this because I haven't been taking care of myself. When I talk about this, I'm talking about being pre-diabetic. You need to lose weight, putting you on some type of medication. The simple things that you could have done to prevent, you chose not to. And I say this because I've seen examples. Let me say I've seen examples. And don't get me wrong, y'all. Let me clear this real quick. I'm not trying to talk to y'all like I'm higher than anybody. I got my issues just like everybody else. Let's just be real. But it concerns me when I see or hear conversations about 3 different people dealing with the same thing at the same time because they didn't do what they should have been doing. These things don't just come to you by chance. You hear these things because it's something that you need to pass on to somebody else, which is what I choose to do today. Your health is your wealth. We hear it all the time. Your health is your wealth. If you're unhealthy, you can't function in the way you need to function to do and be productive at life. You should not have to have a doctor tell you what you need to start doing in order to do it. You should not have to go and get a bad report for someone to tell you this is what you need to do. Take it upon yourself. Be proactive rather than reactive. I say this, man, because it concerns me. It truly concerns me because, I'm 55 and I take pride in the fact that I get up. I try to do my best to stay healthy, eat right, and do the things that, a lot of people have opinions. I ain't eating all healthy. I'm gonna eat what I want, and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, you're not eating and being healthy for you. You're being healthy and eating the things you need to eat for the people that love you. They want you here. They don't want you to continue to say, I can't do this because I got to do this. They don't want you to continue to say, oh, make sure I get my medicine. They don't want you to be the one that they got to put needles in and different things like that. And I'm not talking bad about anybody when I say this. I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way. If anything, I want this to be a wake-up call to all of us to say we need to stay diligent in our health. We need to stay up front and keep and continue to push on, because here's the thing. You can't fight a battle weary. Let me say that again. You cannot fight a battle weary. You can't go through life where I can do this, but I can't do that. Now there's limitations on what you can do to enjoy life. All I'm saying is, for me to hear 3 different, and I don't want anybody to think I'm talking about them specific, because if there's anybody that's on here that's listening that knows that I know them or they recently had something, it ain't you. It ain't you. These are people I don't know at all, but I've heard the conversations about them. Just clear that up, because I don't want anybody to think I'm stepping on no toes and try to put some of my business out there. But at the end of the day, what we need to do is we need to pay attention to be cognizant that our health is very important. Men, get your colonoscopy. Get your prostate checked. Do the things to prevent long-term problems right now. Women, I hate to put this out there, but I was talking to a lady the other day, young lady, maybe in her 30s, maybe close to 42, I think she said. Never had a pap smear, never had a mammogram, nothing. Has 4 kids. 4 children, has never had any of that done. I'm concerned. Now, I'm not going to tell you the conversation I had with her after that, but it's one of those things where if these things come up in casual, just think casual conversation when you're talking about health and going to the gym, which is what we talked about, walking, eating right, different things like that. And then the health exams and all this starts coming up. And then you find out the people who have insurance don't use their insurance to make sure that their health is good. Analyze that for me. Take care of yourself, people. Take care of yourself. That's all I'm saying. I mean, this is something that hits home with me because, you know, I got a lot of partners and female partners, brothers and sisters through the military. And when I talk to them at times and they tell me about, you know, they were diagnosed with this, pre-diabetic and things like that. And we're all brothers and sisters. So I think from my opinion, I can say how I need to say what I got to say to them better than I can say it to you in a different manner than I'll say it to everybody listening. But when I hear these things and they're telling me they're having these health issues, I don't hold back. And like I said, don't get me wrong, I don't think I'm higher than anybody or better than anybody or whatever, but I try my best to stay healthy and concentrate on my health. But one of the questions I asked the people that I've served with, I said, what you got out of the military and just gave up? What's going on? Because these are guys I played ball with. These are guys I ran track with, sports with. These are females we use at PT tests, all these type things that you do in the military to stay healthy. And now you get out and you just don't care. And it's not that they don't care. Let me clear that up. It's not that they don't care. We get complacent. We get lethargic. We feel, you know, there's no requirement for me to do it, so I'm not going to do it. We need to change that mentality. We need to get back to doing the small things so the health issues don't become big things. That's all I'm saying. I love everybody that I'm in touch with, all the people that I consider friends. Y'all are near and dear to me. Anybody that's listening to this show today, you're near and dear to me. I want you around. And when it comes time for that day, let it be from natural causes, not for something you could have prevented. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Let me get off this topic because it's starting to get me a little emotional here. I appreciate everybody tuning in. You know, hey, you know what we do here on the show? Excuse me. What we do here on the show is I try to be transparent. I try to give you information. And when we talk about this critical race theory, I brought it up before and I told y'all I needed to do research. And that's what I did. I took my time to find out what I can find out. But when I seen what happened the other day up at the Capitol with the general and the Secretary of Defense, it kind of struck a chord with me. Because you got a guy up there, and I'm not saying there's anybody, but you got a person that's questioning what they're thinking they need to do for the health of the troops that has never served a day in his life in the military. I'm not saying anybody has to serve. You serve, you serve. If you don't, you don't serve. But don't try to form your opinions about what they're doing and what's best for the masses when you don't know what is about to be included within those masses. That's all I'm saying. We'll be back again next week, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Read up on the critical race theory. I'll post that video a little later on. And, you know, educate people. Educate people. Let them know. Let people know what Juneteenth is all about. Let people know why we feel the way we do about the conviction of Derek Chauvin in this murder trial. Because we've seen too many people in our time, too many people walk away and not be held accountable for the things they do just because they wear a badge or because they sit in a certain seat or because of who their parents are or because they know a lawyer. All these different things happen. And the thing is, if you don't have, as I like to say sometimes, the complexion for the protection, we got guys right now, just be honest, caught selling drugs doing 40, 50 years. He murdered George Floyd as a police officer, 22 and a half. Think about that for a minute. Let that marinate. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'll see y'all again next week. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. And whatever you do this week, do it wholeheartedly and 100%. Don't half-ass it. No more half-assedness during this year. We in 6 months in. Go full throttle. Go full throttle. Do what you got to do. Let's finish this year out strong and do the things we got to do. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all next week. I holla. Peace.